My name is John Jordan. So, um, for the state of Pennsylvania, I handle community relations. And what that consists of is working with all of our arms of the NAACP, whether it's our Veterans Affairs, housing, um, political action, youth in college, health, education, wherever there's a need by one of our committees, community relations and the team that's involved with community relations will assist them in getting the word out into the community or assisting in helping with whatever that focus may be. Something, as long as there's bigots out there, it's always going to be someone affected by it. And there's all types of racism. There's systematic racism, which we find in our in our workforces, whether it's in large institutions, hospitals, uh, s- s- schools, manufacturing companies, and then there's the local Joe on your block who just doesn't like the black family up the street. So there's always going to be some form of racism, and what we do is when it rears its ugly head, we do what we have to do within the confines of the law to fight it. Children don't see color when they're on playgrounds and when they're growing up. But as they get older, they either A, experience some form of racism or they're taught some form of racism. Well, it all depends on where it is and how it comes to light. You know, if it's let's say if it's in the workplace, we'll work directly with the Department of Labor as well as with the institution itself to ensure that that type of behavior is not something that not just that employee, but any employee behind them will never experience again. Um, and it's the same thing if it's in, it doesn't matter what field it's in, what what career it's in. If it happens, we work with the Department of Labor or the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, whoever we have to work with to make sure that it doesn't happen. And then there's cases where we actually have attorneys that work with us that will file a lawsuit against the perpetrator. Communication and advocacy. Um, the communication piece to first sit down and hatch out the problem because does this start at the water cooler? Is this just the norm of activity in that particular workplace? The jokes, the internet postings, things of that nature. It starts first with communication. Let's find out what the problem is. Once the problem is identified and the root of the problem, then we work on broad-based solutions. How can we, as an organization, and how can you, as an employer, guarantee future generations here, or future employees, that they would not be subjected to this type of behavior? And then making sure that any officer, um, whether they're black, whether they're white, whether they're Hispanic, um, any officer that feels that they can treat a citizen any kind of way just because they have a badge and a gun, and they should be checked. And there should be policies in place to where when they are found to be behaving badly, when it's documented, that they have technically broken a law in their behavior, they need to be prosecuted. And I'm a victim of it, of driving while black. There are officers that will stop you and ask you, where are you going? Why are you in this community? Why are you in this neighborhood? Because it's just you and them. And they can. And it's dark. And you're scared. And they'll ask those types of questions. As if because you're African American, you can't afford to live in this community. And as a banker, I was a banker for 21 years. So I was able to live in a very nice community and provide a very nurturing environment for my children. But I can't tell you how many times I was stopped by the police, not given a ticket because I hadn't broken any laws, but questioned. How I felt belittled, and I felt, sometimes they make you feel like you're less of a man because, technically one false move, if I say something something that the officer considers smart, or trying to be a wise guy, now I'm being pulled out the car, I'm being handcuffed, and once again it becomes his word against my word. So, you just try to be as polite as possible, keep your hands as visible as possible, and yes, sir, whatever you need, officer. And just because at that point, you're just trying to make it home to your family. So, there are officers that do this and do it on a regular basis. Arrest and how that arrest takes place, there's protocol that has to happen. And those officers, they're trained to conduct themselves a certain way. Use your training, and your training doesn't always say that 90% of your traffic stops or 85% of your traffic stops, and we have statistics, are people of color. When you look at elected officials, let's use Philadelphia for an example, the mayor appoints the police commissioner. So once again, it all goes back to the voting booth. So people elect a mayor who appoints a police chief or police commissioner, and that police commissioner is not keeping his officers in check, then maybe we need to look at that mayor when it's time for re-election, and maybe we need to call for the resignation of that commissioner. Well, the solution is to keep it visible. Okay, if your police department wants to employ officers that are have habits of misconduct, then we're gonna expose your community. We're gonna expose your police department. We're gonna do whatever we can within the confines of the law to file whatever lawsuits we can against your department, and bring about a monetary award for the people that have been abused. And we're going to, this is back to the communication piece, make sure that there's communication across the board in that department that this type of behavior will not be tolerated. And once again, working with the Department of Justice, working with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, or whoever we have to work with to make sure that when a person is stopped by a police officer, that they're treated with dignity and respect.